Hello everybody and welcome back once again for another video of DIY investing. For today's video, I wanted to point out a nice fractal that I've been noticing with one of my favorite altcoins. Now this is an altcoin that's been accumulating roughly longer than any other altcoin, and it's one that's led the market and the market cap consistently for the last 5 years. This is one of my favorite altcoins and I just recently made a video talking about it, but I wanted to update you guys and show you a fractal that I'm noticing and really my reasons why I'm accumulating so much in the short term. If you guys like this video and find it helpful, or if you're new and just finding this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more updates like the one in this video. If you guys want more awesome analysis, click the invitation link in the description of this video and they're going to get access to my Discord server. Alright guys, let's jump right in the video today. Alright, now to start off this, let's go ahead and take a look at Bitcoin, give you guys a little update with that because it's important to know exactly what the driver of the value is doing. Now, one of my members inside of my Discord asked me exactly where my price levels that I'm watching are for this consolidation. I said that I was watching resistance or a breakout in resistance, and then they asked where exactly that resistance was going to be. And so I'm going to go through and show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe some of you new guys that are just now following me and haven't had the chance to watch my videos from up in the initial rally up. What I've been watching for since this big green candle back down in here was this resistance level at 11.5. I've told you guys that if we close below that, then there's really no reason to think that this is bullish. And until we maintain support above 11.5, then there's really no reason to think that that trend has flipped anytime soon. And so this goes a little bit more in depth. Not only do we have this horizontal resistance line at 11.5, but if we dive into a shorter time frame, we're going to be able to get a little bit more targets here. So we have this 11.5 mark, right? That's held us for the length of this retrace. But now there's also some shorter term, let's actually drop this to a daily. There's actually some shorter term resistance levels that I'm watching as well. Now, even if we don't quite hit and break 11.5, I would still see a lot of nice action if we could come back down in here and break out from some of these shorter ones. For example, we've bounced and rejected off of this descending resistance about 4 different times, and now we're showing more short-term weakness, and it looks as if we're about to drop back down to this support floor at about 94 to 9,500. And so with that, it looks a little bit more bearish in my opinion. It is still possible that we couldn't buy and bounce back up out of here with the potential for the inverse head and shoulder forming right now at resistance. If this is the case, then I want us to hit back up to at least 11,000, which would put us roughly about right here. If we can get back up to 11,000, that should clear us a little bit outside of this resistance level. Now, that would also coexist with the resistance of the neckline for the inverse head and shoulder, and so we would need to break out of 11,000 for that to confirm. And if we broke from 11,000, that's going to take us almost right to my resistance at 11.5. And so really we're at a key point where if we can just break out of this black descending resistance, then that's going to set us up very closely for the breakout of the horizontal resistance level that I've been watching at 11.5. And so with Bitcoin, really there's only a few things to be watching out for. In my opinion, we're bearish until we can break out of this descending resistance. And I think that that's the way that you should structure your trading plan, just because we are coiling in this triangle, whether you want to call it a symmetrical triangle, a descending triangle, whatever it is. It doesn't really matter, but what I can say is we are coiling tighter and tighter in this, and so a significant move either way is to be expected in the short term. And so that's what I'm going to be watching out for. If we can't hold support where we're at, if we drop down a little bit and we don't bounce and we fall back down to about 94 to 9,500, then that's going to be a lot more bearish in my opinion, and I think that that should be the last leg down before we would actually sell through that support floor. And so that's what I'm going to be watching out for with Bitcoin. Alright guys, next up we're going to be taking a look at the fractal that I wanted to show you guys. Now, to take a look at this fractal, we're going to first be analyzing the last Bitcoin cycle that we had. And really what that was when we went from about $2 and ended up at about $1,200 in that insane euphoric cycle. And then we were followed by a long, slow, drawn-out bear market. And so because of the fact altcoins follow Bitcoin, and so it would be apparent to me that some of the better altcoins would follow this cycle. If they follow Bitcoin, it would make sense that some of them are going to continue to follow this cycle because they're just a little bit further behind. Now, with Bitcoin, what we saw after the blow off top was this long, slow bear market. Now, it took about a year from the top to the bottom of capitulation, and then almost another year of just sideways consolidation before we had almost another year of just slow uptrend before the all-time high. And so this cycle was a long one. It took about 3 years from top, bottom, till we broke out of all-time high. About 3 years time, just under that. So this was a long cycle, but it also created a very hyped Bitcoin parabolic run that happened shortly after that. And so with this cycle, I've noticed a key pattern that I wanted to share with you guys, and that comparison takes us back to Ripple, or XRP. Now, XRP is one that I've been buying down here. I actually bought a little bit here at 30 cents and was accumulating at this support floor. We sold a little bit through that support floor, and so I started buying more. And I updated you guys just recently with that video. But I wanted to point out the fact that I think the XRP cycle right now and the last cycle that Bitcoin had are almost identical. And you're going to be able to see kind of what I mean. We had roughly the same sort of parabolic run. We went from significant lows and then rallied extremely high, right? And so for me, these cycles look a lot alike. We had the top of the 3-wave, 4-wave retrace, and then we went into the final blow off top, and now we're kind of just sitting on support of that last 4-wave retrace. And if we look at Bitcoin, we're going to see the same thing. This would have been the 4-wave retrace, and Bitcoin consolidated just on top of that. XRP is just right on that, but it doesn't really matter. You can see the same correlations. Now, what we saw after the initial sell-off from the all-time high was a very strong impulse down, followed by a pretty sizable bounce back up. And that's roughly what we saw with XRP. Now, XRP was a little bit more of a bubble. After we popped, we didn't kind of stay and consolidate up here very long. We just kind of dropped very quickly. After the blow off top, we have our first sell-off and then our buyback before we make our first rejection, right? And now that first rejection takes us into our second support, which took us to about right here. We bounce, and then we get rejected one more time. Bounce, reject one more time. And this really takes us to capitulation, right? And so once we sell through support, and then we get rejected, we go through one more final sell-off. And so really this is our extended sell-off that takes place. But right in the middle of that, when we first break support right here, before we make our last leg down, it's roughly the same as what we saw with XRP, right about here. Right as we break support, it's not quite as volatile as we saw in Bitcoin, but then we make one more leg lower. And so the cycles are roughly the same. The same last sell-off that we experienced in Ripple was roughly the same as the one that we experienced in Bitcoin back in the day. Now keep in mind, guys, Bitcoin is going to be a little different. Every market cycle is different, so you can't just look at it like every cycle is going to be 100% the same, because that's not the case. What you're looking for is similarities between the two. And in my opinion, there's a lot of similarities. I mean, the same consolidation right before we broke support reminds me a lot of what we're seeing inside of XRP now, or what we saw in XRP before. And so this is what I'm watching out for, the fact that we have had capitulation, just like the last Bitcoin cycle, and now in theory, where we should be right now inside of XRP is the last area of accumulation. And this would have been the double bottom formation that we saw inside of Bitcoin. We make capitulation, we rally up, we fall back onto support, we bull trap, we fall back onto support one more time before the breakout. And that's roughly the same as what we're seeing with XRP. We had capitulation here, we broke out, we fell back onto support, bull trap, and now this is the final sell-off where we're just rounding out before we do experience that breakout in the cycle. And so this is kind of what I'm seeing inside of XRP, roughly the same between the two cycles in my opinion. And that's why I'm really buying a lot of XRP right now, is because anytime I had the opportunity to buy $450 Bitcoin and I watched how parabolic that cycle went. And so now I'm seeing roughly the same cycle with XRP, almost playing out to a T. We have very good volume coming in. This consolidation cycle is looking a lot like the ones that we saw previously in XRP. And not only that, but it is following the king crypto, Bitcoin, almost perfectly. And so for me, this is a key indication that accumulation has been started. Accumulation has been going for probably close to a year now, roughly about the same amount of time as the Bitcoin cycle. Roughly 400 days we saw there, whereas Bitcoin Bitcoin had, 300 days, and even then you could count it more as like 270. So the sideways consolidation inside of Bitcoin was a lot shorter, but that's why I wanted to point out that no cycle is going to behave exactly the same. There was also a very significant lead up process that happened after the slow accumulation. And so they're going to accumulate at roughly the same time, but they're going to do it in different ways. Now, whereas Bitcoin slowly accumulated and went more and more parabolic, I don't find that Ripple's going to do that necessarily. I think that with these altcoins, when they really start to pop off, they do it very quickly. And so the sideways and the down action is where you are accumulating with alts. And when the real bull market breakout starts, it happens so quick that it will leave you behind if you're not paying attention. And that's roughly what we saw back here. I mean, think about how much time you had to accumulate as things really didn't do a whole lot before all of a sudden one day, boom, over the course of about a week, you've already missed all of your golden hours or golden opportunities for buying cheap Ripple. And so I'm expecting this cycle to behave a little similarly. It is possible that we could see some nice slow accumulation like we did see back in Bitcoin. That would be ideal because that just leaves us more room to accumulate, but I'm not going to necessarily put all my eggs in that basket if that happening, just because I've seen how parabolic altcoins get. And when that money starts flooding into them from the Bitcoin cycles, they do happen very quick. So it's just important to note that. Now, this is what I'm seeing between these two cycles. Biggest reason for me being excited about Ripple, it has proven itself throughout the duration of Bitcoin's bear market. It has been around since that 2013 mark. It's one of the older coins. It's been around for about 5 years. And so with that being said, you guys are going to be able to count on these coins better than any other ones. And I've said that in the past a lot of times, and I just really want to point that out, is just trust in the older coins that have proven themselves. It's a lot harder to find profitable setups with coins that don't have proven market cycles. And even though you can still nail a lot of those trades and make a lot of profit, when it comes to me accumulating my long-term portfolio and my bag, then the coins that have proven themselves in the past are going to be the ones that I'm going to put the most trust into. Now, Ripple for me is a no-brainer because it's been around for so long. It's got the best volume out of some of the other coins. It has some of the better parabolic runs that we've seen out of the high cap coins. That's a no-brainer for me. We haven't broken support. We've had our one last sell-off that took us back down to almost breaking support at 25 cents. And so for right now, this to me looks like nothing but accumulation. I'm not going to be shaken out of this market. There's a lot of people that were calling for lower lows. I even said that there was potential that we could drop down to about 16 cents. But I think that that's looking less and less likely in the wake of the crypto market. And so for me, even if we do drop another leg lower, I'm buying in this time. I see the correlations between Bitcoin's last cycle, and I know how crazy that went. And so for me, you guys have an opportunity to catch the generational bottom of these things. Like literally, even if you were accumulating at 38 cents or 40 cents, and you're currently sitting underwater, 50%, it doesn't really matter because when this is, or what I should say, it doesn't really matter because when you're accumulating and you're averaging into your position, even if you were averaging in at like 40 cents or whatever, and you're still buying in the short term, when this cycle turns around, it's going to be so parabolic in the next year or two that these significant lows down in here, they're going to equal absolutely nothing on the big picture scale because it really won't matter. I mean, look at back what happened here. I remember sitting here trading this cycle back in the day, feeling really bullish, accumulating a lot back in here before we had the parabolic run. And a lot of people were so bearish. They said that there was no way this could continue to sustain with the parabolic run that we just had. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense because this sucker really flew. But that's the thing, guys. These markets are going to surprise you. And even if you would have bought, at 25 cents and you saw a 50% decline all the way back down to support, if you would have just held this little drop in between here and even just buying and FOMOing at the top of the breakout doesn't equate to anything after the real parabolic run starts. And so this is what I wanted to give you guys today, a quick Bitcoin update, show you guys the levels that I'm watching. With Bitcoin specifically, if we go back before we wrap up this video, with Bitcoin specifically, I want us to see us hold support right here. If we drop back down at the support at about 94 to 9,500, I'm going to be more bearish than ever because the liquidity looks to be drying up on the support floor. We're having a less expansive push after the sell-off, and so we see this here, big push down, big push up, push down, small reaction back up. And so unless we break out right where we're at now, and we come back down to retest the support floor, it's going to look to me like the liquidity is dried up, and it's more likely than not we drop back down to my next two targets at 83.50 and 7600. So that's what I'm going to be watching out for. Bullish case, if we break up, I'm really not going to be too interested until we hit about 11K. Once we hit 11K, that puts us just outside this descending resistance, and then it would also put us at resistance to the neckline for the inverse head and shoulder. And if we could break that, it also puts us really close to my resistance at 11.5. And so really, if this inverse head and shoulder plays out, I would expect this market to be bullish. A short-term break of this descending resistance is going to indicate that the market has shifted and the sentiment is back in favor of the bulls. But until we break out of this descending resistance, there's really no reason to think that. So that's the way I'm going to be playing my Bitcoin trades. It's the way that I'm going to be watching it. Really, I don't have any open positions. I already accumulated at 9,100 at the initial dip. And I told you guys that my next two targets are 83.50 and 76. So I have no reason to be messing around with Bitcoin. For right now, I'm just watching to see what the market's going to give us. Anyways, guys, thank you all so much for the support. I will catch you in the next video. As always, peace out.